I also look for coachable people. Can you find your way and find people who are coachable? Then my interviews are a lot about how coachable a person is. Show me how you've done. Have you received feedback from your manager? If you failed or if you succeeded, how did you go back to your manager?
Yeah. One, two, one, two.
With a career spanning nearly 2 decades, Laghu has done it all. From enterprise sales to new business development, from individual contributor to being a sales leader, Gartner to Uber to now leading commercial sales at Freshworks. Laghu's journey is one that many admire and would love to learn from.
Laghu has been a huge influence in my own sales career. Laghu was one of my earliest partners in crime when we were cold calling out of a telephone booth back in Gartner. His presence, approach, and sheer consistency had a huge influence on how I grew in sales. Today, Laghu joins us to talk through why the top of the funnel is where the hardest punch lands, how he's flipping the sales motion from inbound to outbound first, the sales muscle every rep needs to build in 2025, and the systems he uses to drive daily execution across his global team. Welcome, Laghu.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks, Soumya. These are really warm words.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, okay. Laghu, as we do, we'll get you warmed up with a few quick rapid fire questions. So rely on your instincts, whatever comes first to your head.
Got it.
Okay, first question. What's a movie or show you've watched way too many times?
Top Gun, version one. Every single time that I'm feeling down and out, I still go and watch that.
What's one thing your team would roast you for if given the chance?
Where do you get your energy from? Like, unreal. Are you high on something?
The one thing you must hear in a rep's discovery call.
One thing that I must hear is that there are next steps. If you don't have a next step, it was a dud call.
Okay, and last one. If you weren't in sales, what would you be doing?
I keep mulling over that. Two careers that come to mind. One is I could have been a lawyer, and I could have been a doctor, a dentist. So
Oh,
either of those.
Okay, Laghu, I hinted to that in my introduction, but you've built your early sales muscle in a phone booth, right? Breaking through tough territories with just your voice. What from those early cold calling days still shapes, how you sell or lead today?
Got it. One of the first things I think I had my first boss right out of a postgrad college, very on prompt on his game, and he was also trying to set Outbound up. That was a business that where Outbound did not kind of exist. And one of the first things that he taught, which always lingered on till date, is what do I review with you? Um, if you don't have a pipeline, Lagu, what do I do? There is a waste of your time and my time, and your time may not be precious. My time is precious. Don't waste it. So the message that I got was how quickly you can make your pipeline. For example, in our Gartner days, I think what I saw was success and accolades all around when we had joined there. Right, everyone was clapping and chest thumping, and I didn't have a pipeline. I realized when I joined in, I think May end or early June, I just didn't have anything. I said I want to be there, but how do I get there? There are no leads. It's 100% outbound business. Let me lock myself up. Let me reach out to people that have not been reached out formally by this business. Let's build a pipe, and then once I have the pipe, then the next couple of motions will land. That has stayed on with me. In fact, that's what I keep telling my folks. And if you don't have a pipe, then you don't have any business to be in sales. Right? Build a pipe and then move forward.
And how do you? Obviously, the big fear, and I had this when we used to cold call, is the rejection that you get, right?
Right.
When you pick up the phone, someone is doesn't have the time, is rude to you. How do you deal with that rejection? Do you feel anything when you get rejected?
Yeah, all the time, even today. So I still do cold calling in different regions now. To give this a broader portfolio, I don't know the culture of a region, but I still pick up the phone and say, "Hi, can I speak to you for a minute?" One is the butterflies always will remain before a conversation. I definitely am an introvert, which makes the effort even more larger. But what it has also told me is the quietest voice can be the most direct voice as well. One of the first things that I would do whenever I would go into any new job is I would land my own elevator pitch. Gartner days, I still have those elevator pitches recorded in my laptop. So that still exists. I made my own pitches as to how do I sound. Do I smile and speak? How does that sound? Bad day when you'd see me in a bad mood is the day that I couldn't get a meeting in.
So just walk me through your mindset, or uh, your rep, their mindset before they actually pick up the phone. What are you or they telling themselves to get into that the mood to cold call people?
Right. So I would prepare a day or two before. So I would have in my mind calling days. So Mondays and Fridays I would avoid calling. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays were my pretty much go-to days for setting up my own pipeline. And I would prep a day before. So typically my emails would start going out on Monday evening to people saying that I'm reaching out. The thing that I took, I think, almost 5 years to learn, Karthik and Soumya, I think, is I did not take rejections well, especially in my first role at CMC, which used to be a subsidiary of TCS. When I used to tell people I'm calling from CMC, they would say, "Oh, is it CMS Infosystems?" I said, "No, it's CMC." They said, "What exactly?" This is a cat, mouse, cat. That's the org that I'm calling from. They said, "Okay, what exactly do you do?" Then I would kind of flip and say, "It is TCS." "Oh, no, no, we don't want to deal with TCS." And something like that would come up, and I would not take that well those days. I would say, I think, what can I do better? What could should I not have said TCS? Should not have said CMC? Should I pivot on TCS or there? But always kind of go back. So I used to do a train ride back to Navi Mumbai back then from BKC where office was, and all of this time I kept mulling over what I would do differently. Eventually, what point I kind of came to was. This is not me. They're not rejecting me. They're rejecting the notion of the organization. So the failure is not me. I'm a fresh, renewed next day in the morning. Uh, but again, we are all human every day. There will be times when you get hit, you'll feel awkward and you'll feel low in energy. But how do you get back quickly up was something that took a while. I think took a greater part of about 4 5 years for me to kind of get there. Dow Jones, which was my second organization. After CMC was a lot of learning. Like pretty much every door was closed because Bloomberg was the incumbent, every person that you would call at. And how do you open a door where somebody so strong already exists? Got me to learn massive, massive about that elevator pitch. Ensure that if it is a 30-second conversation, 1 minute, 2 minute, 5 minute, how do I make use of that 5 minute?
So what I'm actually hearing from you is, spanning over your career and what you expect sales reps as they start cold calling is, have a clear understanding of what you're going to say when you have those 30 seconds or a minute or maybe 5 minutes. So
Right.
prepare well, prepare a day in advance, time your outreach well, and also understanding that rejection is part of the game.
Yep.
It's not personal.
Okay, you've got about 45 reps across geographies.
Hmm.
If you could get them to master a skill or a set of skills this year, what would it be, and how are you coaching towards that?
Be the master of your own destiny. For that to happen, you need to create your own plan, walk backwards from, for example, if it is a quarterly goal or a monthly goal that you have, you need to know by for hitting that goal by so and so date how many meetings should be on the calendar, how many of those meetings should have taken place, how do you progress those meetings. Most people do it at a very high level, saying that I should be doing about 8 9 conversations in a month. But timing of those is super crucial in outbound. If you do that at the end of the month, I'm only going to close something in my next quarter. If I do those conversation in the first 2 week of the quarter, I may close something in the within the quarter. So timing of conversations, quantum of conversations, daily planning, and nobody else is accountable. You should be accountable yourself. And if you're not driven intrinsically, then create a goalpost with your manager saying that every day I'll give you an update on what I've done for the day. Uh, your manager is a coach whose job partially is going to vacillate between a supervisor, a manager, a coach, or a leader. I keep reversing as well. So it's a reverse conversation, saying that, how do you want to with your reps? How do you want me to work with you? These are the things and areas that I can outline with you. And this is typically at new hiring stage. where you're building that rapport with somebody new who has come in, somebody who's already in the system. You would pretty much have established how you work together.
Laghu, what you said is very interesting because it requires somebody to be very self aware to even realize how they are motivated, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, and then set that in motion by setting goals or planning and timing how their actions would stack up.
Right.
Have you noticed in your experience this is something people learn on the job, maybe mirror others who are doing it well, or do you think this is a little bit more innate and it's part of someone's personality?
I think that's a good question. I mean, I've seen a good mix. People who are very self-aware and people who are completely opposite end of the spectrum. I've seen myself to be the opposite end of the spectrum. It took me a very long while to realize where my motivations lie. In one of the previous companies that I used to kind of work for, in the interview process, they used to call it sense of purpose.
Hmm.
And by the time I realized what really is my sense of purpose, I was pretty much done through about 10 years of my career. So
Yeah.
I think it takes time, which is where the a good leader or a good manager will give you that spacing. This is where I want you to land a 30, 60, 90-day plan and mutually make up. Say that 30 days plan is something I've laid out for you broadly, depending on how this organization works historically with most of the people who join similar role. Let's work out the 60 and 90-day plan together. So I think it's a, yeah, for everyone who's not self-aware, giving people that space and say that, that's okay. We'll make it together. We'll find out a rhythm that this organization needs us to deliver together, and let's move on from there rather than the other way around. So it becomes tough if you're being given a vision that you're not kind of really looking forward to.
You've mentioned reps often fail because they don't break their goals into daily actions,
Absolutely.
right? How do you drive daily actions within your larger team today? Any systems, any rituals, any tracking methods that you have?
Absolutely. I think over the many years, I think the ability of systems to track what we do on a daily basis is improving
Yeah.
compared to, I think, our old days of Microsoft Excel tracking. It has become much cleaner, much sharper. So there are enough tools available. What I've done is I've created a, again, depending on the kind of organization that you manage, when you're managing a large business, then you say that the organization still expects us to deliver this number. If you that
Yeah.
need that number to be delivered, for example, if it is an annual goal, then they will not start measuring our pipeline and everything on 30th of December and see what closures we have done. There will be multiple guard posts that the organization will look to uh, for us to kind of cross. What are those? And for reaching those, what are the steps that we need to take? And then put all of that in a weekly kind of a review format. For smaller mid-market kind of a deals, the rigor would kind of include those milestones, which could be, say, once in a fortnight would become weekly milestones.
Mm.
For a even smaller business like a SMB business, those guardrails for me typically become, everyday update till the time you're standing on your own feet, saying that what did you do today? How can I help you get sharper in your execution? Uh, so the TLDR to your question is depending on the size scale of the business and the length of the sales cycle. I will tailor make it for being measured either every day for a SMB kind of a business, once in a week for slightly larger business, which is say commercial mid market kind of a business. Then for pure enterprise motions, probably once in a fortnight, saying that these many meetings should have happened. Where are you on the meeting setup? Where is your pipeline built up happening? And then kind of work your way forward and backwards on that.
Awesome. And just to tease through some of the things that you said, right? One is the ownership of the daily planning, right? You mentioned that you know you have to break down what you're going to do into tasks.
Right.
Does that ownership of breaking down the task depend on the sales rep, or that is something that you expect the sales manager to own?
Yeah, I will expect the sales manager to coach for the simple reason, depending on the size and the scale of business. One is people might be new, so the
Yep.
processes for them would take a learning curve. Uh, at the same time, with the people, it's a say SMB kind of a business. You're hiring about 3 4 years experience, so they may have come from a different kind of industry into a different kind of an organization, cultures. Likewise, I mean, if you're currently I'm a level 3 manager. So if I'm hiring anyone below me or below, is the same level of conversation saying that this is what I would ask you to do because we've seen success happen here. Let's walk those first couple of milestones till the time you're able to kind of run on your own. But likewise, to a rep level, the same kind of propensity to tell them that we've seen success here. A run is required from here to here, a sprint of sorts, and then you can slow down once you have these many deals in the pipeline. But what we will review weekly is or daily is these one, two, three.
I want to ask you a quick question as a follow up. I mean, one is we're talking about stand ups and deal rooms. So you always you balance the stand ups and the deal rooms with leaderboards or scorecards,
Right.
so that it fosters that spirit of competition. How do you execute that at Freshworks?
Still to do it well. I think I'm still finding my way around this to do it well. But I think it's a weekly breakdown on where we need to be at a rep level from a pipe builder perspective, from a closure perspective, whether it is inbound and outbound, and I kind of break that down in terms of where the team is stacking up. So the people who build the highest pipe are on, rated from or rather from in a decreasing order. So we have a funnel view there. Then people who are supposed to close a certain amount of business, again a funnel view on that. People who are supposed to do a number of outbound reach outs, a kind of funnel view on that. What we've also started to do is the kind of outreaches that we're doing, the open rates, which basically tells how intelligently we are running our sequences of outreaches to the various automated tools that exist. It's not a robotic sequence. Are you changing those yourself? So whose sequence is getting the most open rates, most click throughs, kind of rate people on that. Broadly, these four, and then outbound, it's much simpler, right? So what is the who's driving the maximum throughput on calls, maximum throughput of emails, and then the output generated through a pipe creation and on the deals closure. So typically, kind of a four pronged in each side.
And do you guys celebrate the leaders who hit those numbers and exceed those numbers as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I wish there is more leeway in Indian rules and we can get beers and all in offices. But for now, it's pizzas and diet cokes or cokes in office.
Nice.
And yeah, pat on the backs, some swag here and there to say that this is the monthly winner of sort, and then leadership dinners, saying that you're top of the charts for the month. Our SVP is in town. Why did you come and go and meet the SVP? So that kind of definitely is motivating people who have not we don't get a chance to kind of see up close in person how leaders operate.
I want to talk about the inbound versus outbound, right? And you're going from 70% inbound to outbound first. What's the shift you would be pushing in your reps or team members to make as they try to go outbound first?
Right. Yeah, almost a 90-95% inbound to the reverse. That's where I'm headed. Uh, so as I said, inbound. I don't know who's controlling my destiny. One is marketing would be doing. Of course, they are doing a lot of effort, but the way the SEM motion kind of gets you leads, it's going to be a very large audience where they're kind of reaching out, and some part of those cohorts will match, and they will pick up that and kind of pass it on to the SEM inbound lead uh, as a MQC of sorts before the sales kind of picks it up and qualifies or disqualifies. So somebody else. So there are too many kind of moving parts. None of these is in my control. I just don't know what will happen. The only thing as a rep, if I'm a rep, I'll get to know is, oh, Karthik or Soumya has reached out. This is what they were searching for. Uh, this is the internal whatever scoring mechanism an organization will have. This is the scoring mechanism. That's why it has reached me today. So then I will do a little bit of research and then do a targeted kind of a reach out back to either of you. This is where my destiny and my game as a rep begins. Versus
Right.
an outbound. I 100% am in control of my destiny. To Karthik, what you were saying earlier, right? Why did we used to lock ourselves, literally lock ourselves somewhere in the phone booth for the first part of the day. We never would come out. I mean, by the time we would come out, it was almost 2:33 p.m. Now, prioritization cannot be arbitrary. It's a super important step for you to know who has the propensity to buy. And these days there are enough tools available that will give you the propensity signals. How do you stand out in your messaging? That's critical. Everyone is using the same LLMs to research. The amount of crisp data that it throws up
Yeah.
is incredibly succinct and precise. Use it. Prioritize, uh, personalize, and the last pillar is when you reach out, create a difference. That's a three-step process, and once you have a response that you receive, how do you break it down into a more intelligent conversation rather than flooding somebody's calendar saying I'm going to do a 1 hour conversation.
Yeah.
The world that we are living in today, most there is no blue ocean anymore. It's a replacement motion. 99% of the people that we're going to speak to would have somebody or the else as a tool already existing. You're going to replace
Yeah.
that motion. How do you tell somebody that what you're doing is not what you should be doing? That's where your intelligence as a person comes in. That's where the coaching role of a manager comes in. But outbound will take time. It is not easy for anyone who's doing the transition from baked data that they are receiving
Yeah.
to getting into the habit of prioritizing your own accounts every day. It's a relentless process.
That's yeah, that's a
Sorry for a
very
kind of really long monologue, but I'm
no,
really
that was
passionate about outbound.
no, that was very well put, and it was even more interesting because I think you mixed both, the mindset that's required for outbound, and then also at a tactical level, in terms of tools, strategies, cadences, or sequences that one must have, right? I'm curious. Do you think some of this is also going to reflect in the way you're hiring or training the team?
Absolutely. Things that I'm looking for is the same things that I just spoke of. Has somebody done outbound? Then what kind of outbound have they done? Of course, everyone wants to look at successful people. I also look for coachable people. Successful people who are already sold success are really expensive and keeps getting more expensive. Can you find your way and find people who are coachable? May or may not have been as successful. They may not have found the right partner as a manager. So
Yeah.
can you find those people in your conversations? How do you bake those conversations in? My interviews are a lot about how coachable a person is. Show me how you've done. Have you received feedback from your manager? If you failed or if you succeeded, how did you go back to your manager? What did you take as feedback? What were the next steps? How did you refine your articulation? What was your first month sales cycle? What was your 12th month sales cycle in the same role in the same organization? Would give you sense of how people are looking at their journey. And I would always ask the question, what is the book or a podcast or a video on YouTube that you're currently reading? Now that gets me back to the question, for example, when we were all studying, we were studying something to become something. Now we are in a professional role. This is what is getting bread and butter to us. Are we
Yeah.
improving ourselves by reading something? What are we investing on? I mean, I need to be better than any. There's so many other tools coming up into the market. AI is cold calling these days. How do I get better than that? I need to be upping my own game. If you're not reading, that also tells me that you're not coaching your own self. You're not wanting to be ahead of the curve. So these are basic questions that I keep asking. What are you reading these days? What's the last book that you read? What are the top three things? It may not be a sales book. It could be anything. Uh, but people need to be in the habit of investing in their own journey.
Yeah.
What do you listen for or watch out for in that first minute when maybe a rep does a cold call with with a prospect?
Right.
What are you as a manager um, focused on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Couple of things that I used to focus on. I've kind of produced what I'm looking at these days. Uh, so if you look at any rookie cold call, the first 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes is where people are blurting out. So just to introduce myself, my name is Laghu and I'm reaching out to you from this organization. Can I have your next 5 minutes? I want to speak to you about how does IT service management, and I know you were searching for something. That's the reason I reached out. Oh my God, the other person is just going to die. Uh, just take a breath. What do you want the other person to remember? He not remember Laghu Sikarwar. He not probably remember the name of the organization that we spoke of. He or she may only remember what's the value in it for him. So if you communicate that well, take a knee. Communicate that well. The reason I'm reaching out to you is I saw your note and you attended this conference ABC, which exactly ties to what my organization does. And I saw you also speaking or putting a comment on a note that somebody else had published a white paper on. Those are three things that I wanted to kind of speak to you. The time that I need from you is only 15 minutes of your time. And I promise if this discussion is not value adding, we'll continue to be acquaintances over LinkedIn and let's move forward then. That is what I keep coaching people on. See, that's not a, you're trying to replace something that people are using. It's not going to be easy. If you blurt something out, it will never open a door for you.
Lovely. I think goes through a lot of what you've also said before during this podcast is I think you mentioned these two or three things, right? Like you mentioned the tone, and not just blurting everything out. You mentioned how you frame the problem. Maybe give an example of what you've seen through the signals that you've received, and maybe very quickly talk about the insight that you want to share, thereby opening the door for a 15-minute conversation. So that was great. I know you mentioned reading, and you mentioned looking at podcasts. Any frameworks or scripts that you lean on?
Last year got introduced to the concept of this book written by Ted McKenna, the same person who was a co-author of Value Selling. Uh, so I met up with him in one of the Uber events in NA when I was there last year. I realized that too many organizations are now moving to the Jolt effect as a sales methodology. Like all the larger ones are doing those transitions. How do I get a team which has which is selling into small enterprise, mid enterprise, and large enterprise? Because when I read the book, it pretty much seemed like a large enterprise motion. So again, what is that one or top two things that you can bake in to become a coach? And if it is a replacement conversation that you're having, or if it is a blue ocean, the kind of conversation that you need to kind of have is very different. But in B2B parlance, there's something else, FOMO. So fear of messing up is much much larger, which nobody speaks about. And when I started trying that out in conversations which went cold, we started realizing that even mid-sized organizations, we do not have the bandwidth or too many people to help execute. This became our mid-market SMB kind of a motion out of that, saying that how many resources do you have to help you execute that project, and that became so simpler for us to even put that into a forecast or not. Say that they don't have resources, we don't think that this deal will come in because they just one person is running the show. Too many risks on one person, too many challenges on one person to even aim to remotely want to solve. So how do you the distilled version of Karthik, what you're trying to ask is, read more books, invest in yourself, but at the same time still you are understanding, and then you should be as a coach be able to coach others. That's my sense.
So, Laghu, for a lot of founders and sales leaders listening in, right? And this is we're kind of asking you to give us a hack. But what's the one hard-earned sales lesson that cost you a lot of time and maybe even deals, but you now swear by?
Build your pipelines. Sales is a it's not a it's not an art. Unfortunately, it's a science, it's a formula. Sales is a formula. There are numerators and denominators. Work on each with your team every single day. Your team is intelligent, so don't ask them for basics. Ask them for value addition. Coach them. Don't tell them. Telling and coaching are very different. Don't tell them what they should have done three calls. Yes, when they're going back home, they know that they should have done three calls. If that did not happen, why did that not happen? How can the next day become better than the day that's going past? That's the that's the science that I live by.
Yeah.
It's end of the day a very simple formula. There is velocity and all of that on top, and then there is a denominator. If you're not working on each, you will not know what is going to come out of your funnel. It will always be a black box. I'm still learning, but that's what I will advise each one of us to become sharper on. You cannot execute on all of the four variables in the equation. Pick one variable, execute that for one quarter, and gradually do the transition to next variable and next variable, and then voila, you have a much better and sharper pipe, the one that you needed to get to your numbers and above.
Awesome. Lagu, thank you so much for what you've shared. Really, my takeaways are the things that made you successful when I knew you back in early 2011 are still principles that you live by, right? Um, the most important thing is to build your pipeline that you did very successfully as an individual contributor. But what I've seen and what you've said over the years that you've grown to being a people manager and a leader, you allow the space, the time, and the context, and still ensure that your people below you execute on the building of the pipeline, right? And I think that's something that has held you in great stead as you've continued to rise. So thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man. It was hard to get you on this, but one last thing before you go, we have one question. What is the kindest thing someone has done for you?
Given me a space to fail, and I failed like miserably in my, I think, my transition into the new role as a BDR lead for large enterprises in Gartner. Those like failed like how I've never like seen that kind of a failure ever in my life. But just that space saying that's okay. You will stumble your way across. If the first couple of months are bad, I have your back. Don't worry too much about where you are stumbling. As long as you move forward, I don't take backward as a movement. So, I mean, you remember our leader back those, right? So he said backward is not an option, but keep stumbling your way across where you're wanting to head to, and you'll get there. I think that was, in my eyes, still in a very tough time, the kindest thing anyone could have done to me, because those were times when your chin drops down and your shoulders droop a little, and you don't know where to kind of look for inspiration. And that's that one light at the end of the tunnel, which you'll say, okay, this is what I'll latch on to, and when I pull and tug on that, that's when I can come out of all of this darkness. Yeah, so pretty much so.
Awesome, Lagu. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Sales School.
Thanks, Karthik. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Thanks for kind of inviting me here. You've been incredible and gracious hosts. Really appreciate what you guys are building together.